I am here with Anthony Coniglio, CEO of New Lake Capital Partners. Nice to see you. How are you doing?
Great to see you, Andrew. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you about this. Can you just first give us an overview of what New Lake is and kind of the market that you found yourself in? It's a really interesting thing. You saw a market for it and then you went after it.
Yes, we did. So New Lake today is the second largest owner of cannabis real estate in the United States. We own 33 properties across 12 states with 13 tenants. Really, our business model is simple. We acquire properties from and for these cannabis operators. These are cultivation facilities and dispensaries, and we lease them back to the operators on a long-term basis, typically 15 to 20 years.
Okay. And I'm seeing 6% year-over-year growth. How are you going to sustain that? What do you kind of contribute to that growth?
Sure. Well, first off, you have the cannabis industry has some underlying fundamentals that are driving that growth. These are states, it's driven by states that are legalizing for medical use, but then states that also legalize from medical use, they progress into an adult use construct. So that unlocks some growth for the industry, and the industry needs infrastructure in order to support that growth. They need more cultivation facilities and more retail locations or dispensaries. So that drives growth. And for us specifically, we get growth from three components. Component number one is our portfolio. Again, these are leases, long-term leases. Our portfolio has contractual escalators where the rent goes up every year. And across our portfolio, it's 2.6%. So every year we collect rent, revenue goes up 2.6%. Number two is we have unfunded commitments. So we have a couple of projects with tenants where we've given them a commitment to fund tenant improvements to the property. So as we fund those tenant improvements, we charge additional rent, and so revenue goes up from that. And then third is doing new deals. We have $83 million available under our credit facility. And so as we execute on new transactions, utilize that facility will obviously grow revenue.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think a lot of people don't really associate like, oh, you need real estate for cannabis production. I mean, obviously it makes sense to us, but I think sometimes you forget there's that market there. How are you finding these new deals? Kind of what's the process with that?
Yeah, so it's important to know that for our business, we don't take what you would call development risk. We're not acquiring a property and then searching for the operator. We will acquire the property when there is a lease in place. And so it comes together. Being one of the largest in the industry, I don't want to say people always come to us, but a lot of times you're just well known to the industry. And so we have relationships that we've been building over our the 6 years that we've been at it. We're very well known in the industry. And so we'll often get calls, would you be interested in this property? But we're also out there eating the bushes because we don't know everybody. So we have folks that are out there calling on the industry as well.
I'm curious, how are you planning for potential federal cannabis legalization? Is that something obviously is probably top of mind?
Yes, it would be the most significant catalyst for our business and obviously for the industry. We are preparing. I'm going to be honest. We're actually hoping, right? And when we talk about catalysts for our business today, I don't think it's going to be federal legalization. I think that's very far down the road. I think for us, a real catalyst would be the federal government deciding they want to leave it to the states. Something like the States Act, which the current President Trump has expressed support for, and I'm not getting political, but during the campaign, last year was the first time ever that we had both presidential candidates in support of cannabis reform. And one of the items that the current president supported was the States Act, which says, let's take this out of the federal government's hands and let's put it to the states. And so if we were able to get that type of reform, it unlocks significant growth for the industry, which unlocks opportunity for us.
Yeah, and definitely a lot of growth potential. Where do you kind of foresee things going this coming year and then moving into 2026?
Yeah, so for the near term, that growth potential comes from states adopting a medical program, such as Kentucky. Last year, Kentucky started awarding their first licenses, and we do expect that later this year or early 26, that industry will start its first sales. But that's an entire ecosystem in Kentucky that needs to be created. So again, cultivation facilities and dispensaries. And I want to just make sure we understand, when we talk cultivation facilities, some people may think farming. Certainly some corners of the industry do outdoor grow of cannabis. For our buildings, think industrial buildings. Think 100,000 square foot industrial building in a typical industrial area that's been modified or purpose-built to grow cannabis indoors with highly complex security systems as well as environmental systems. And so back to the growth component, we'll get that growth from those new medical programs like at Kentucky, or from a program converting from a medical market to an adult use market. And one example there is Ohio, which did that last year, and Pennsylvania is currently evaluating if they want to convert from medical to adult use.
Okay. I am curious about like potential risks. What's your biggest hurdle? Anything with like tenant risk, kind of how have you managed that?
Yeah, it's the core of our business, and you're wonderful because you hit right on the biggest risk in our business, and it's collecting rent. As I said earlier in a presentation earlier, our business is simple. We lease out the properties and then we collect rent. But once you do the deal, it's hard to actually collect
Yeah.
rent, especially in an industry like cannabis, which has had significant difficulties over the last couple of years. So what we do when we execute our new transactions is we underwrite these transactions with the expectation that competition increases, margins decrease, and that the world just gets more difficult for our tenant base. And so but let me say it this way. We recently announced our fourth quarter earnings, and for the full year of 24, we grew our AFFO, which is as a REIT, real estate investment trust, is the measure of our free cash flow. It's the key metric for REIT. We grew that 10% per share year over year in a year that was very difficult. And so I had an investor say, "What did you do in 2024 to deliver that growth during such a difficult period?" My comment was, "We didn't do anything in 2024. But it's what we did in 2020, 2021, and 2022. It was the transactions we entered into that were able to withstand what was going on in the cannabis market, provide return for the tenant, and that in turn allows them to continue to pay rent to us."
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So that's the biggest risk is it's that credit profile. And it's ensuring when we execute new transactions, we're focused on high quality tenants with good cash flow profiles for the property itself.
Incredible. Well, thank you so much, Anthony, for stopping by and
That's great.
telling me all about New Lake.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it.